Today's message is don't allow individuals to take advantage of you. Today's message is don't allow individuals to take advantage of you. What do I mean by this? It means that when you act in service or in servitude or being in a calling to help an individual, there's a time where it's time to move on from that individual and be called into the new thing that the Lord is calling you into. Unless the Lord is still keeping you there to help that individual, then it's fine. But there's too many times when we're being called into something new by the Lord, or the Lord saying, okay, you've helped enough, you've done your duty, you've given the 10%, you've done all these things for this individual. Now I'm calling you back to the land of Canaan. I'm calling you back to the promised land, just how he called back Jacob. How do we see this? Jacob, he is serving Laban for about 20 years. He's being deceived by Laban by having to work another extra 7 years for his wife Rachel after he got Leah after working 7 years. So a total of 14 years, and he stays there a couple longer. Okay, so I gave you the context of what happened. So he works for Laban, right? And the minute that Jacob sees that it's time for him to go, see that it's time to go into his new calling, and the Lord even confirms it by saying that, hey, it's time to go back to the land of Canaan. It's time to go fill in the original promised land. You've helped this individual. You've been in servitude, right? And you got your wife. You got all these things. Now it's time to go back. Okay. The minute that Jacob decides to leave is the minute that Laban, who he's been in servitude towards, who he's been blessing by his servitude, who you've been blessing through finance, who you've been blessing through communion, who you've been blessing through all these things. I don't know how you've been blessing this person, but Laban doesn't want him to leave. And he even explicitly says this because Jacob has brought abundance. He has brought multitudes in the flock. He has brought in a bunch of things. He has been serving, picking up the trash, doing all these things, acts of servitude. But the minute that Jacob decides to leave, the minute that Jacob knows that it's time to leave, not thinks, he knows it's time to leave, is the moment that Laban says, no, you need to stay. You need to stay. I'll even increase your wages. I believe he even says that. I need to increase your wages. I'll actually confirm if he says that. I'll even increase your wages so you can stay here and continue to what? Continue to bless me. And he's holding him back from the promised land that the Lord is now calling him into now. And too many times we don't have discernment on whether we're being held back by another individual after we bless them, because now they started idolizing the okay. In today's message, we're talking about not allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. There's too many times we're being taken advantage of, and we're not being called into the new thing that the Lord wants us to be in, and we're not walking into it because we're too busy still in servitude to someone that's starting to idolize the blessings that we've given to them. Okay, what do I mean by this? We are able to bless individuals. Think about it. When we act in servitude, we're blessing them. When we give someone finances, we're blessing them with what? Finances. When we say that we're going to do this and do this and do this for them out of acts of servitude, what is it? It's blessing them, okay? So we're able to get blessings, and the Lord gives us blessings. So we're able to get blessings from the Lord, and by being with the Lord, we're able to bless others in many ways. I don't know how you're blessing this individual or if you've experienced this, but we need to be able to discern when an individual is now taking advantage of that blessing, or you, and now is holding you back from the new calling that the Lord has you to be in after you've been blessing this individual and been in servitude. We can see this with Jacob and Laban. Jacob has been serving Laban for about 20 years, right? He serves him for about 20 years, and then when the Lord is telling him, when he knows it's time to leave, he decides and tells Laban, all right, I'm leaving. I got to go back to the promised land. I got to go into the calling that the Lord wants me to follow. And what does Laban do? He explicitly says that he explicitly doesn't want him to leave. Why? Because Jacob during this time has been acting in servitude, 20 years of servitude, shepherding the sheep, gaining the flocks, all in multitude, bringing abundance and blessing and fruitfulness to everything that Laban has. And he even goes so far as even saying, Laban says that I'll even increase your wages so you can stay here. Trying to hold him back and take advantage of the blessing that Jacob has brought in his acts of servitude. When Jacob realizes it's time to leave, Laban decides it's time to convince him to stay in order to receive blessing still. Sometimes We fall into deception because we think that we're still in acts of servitude to this individual, but now this individual is starting to idolize the blessings that we have brought rather than recognizing that the person who actually brought the blessing, the individual who actually brought it, is Jesus Christ. Because the only reason why we bring blessing, or the only reason why we bring servitude, is due to imitating Christ, due to following his ways, due to wanting to act in servitude to this individual, or even due to the Lord calling us to help this individual due to the burden that they are in. But now we need discernment on whether now we're being taken advantage of and held back. Because Laban goes so far as Jacob. Okay, let me go back. Jacob literally leaves in the middle of the night because he knows Laban is not trying to have him leave. He's not trying to do, he's not having it. And what does Jacob do? He just leaves in the middle of the night, all right? He just leaves in the middle of the night. He's just going to pick up all his things and he's just going to dip, right? And what does Laban do? He finds out on the third day, symbolism of Jesus. I noticed that too, third day. Jesus rise on the third day. Catch that? Yep. But Laban realizes on the third day, or is being told by his sons on the third day, his family, Jacob left. And what does Laban do? He finds him. He goes and chases after him. Some individuals are literally so desperate to have you there to give them blessings to in abundance, and taking advantage of you knowingly or even unknowingly to a point where they're going to chase you even when you leave in secret, even when you start ignoring, even when you put a boundary of distance, they'll even chase you in hopes of bringing you back to continue to bring them blessings. So we need discernment on when an individual is now starting to take advantage of us, and especially taking advantage of the blessings that we brought in acts of servitude towards this individual. And so the final points are these, okay? Let me get out my thing. So these are the final points that I have for you. Listen to God's direction. Okay? God told Jacob to go back to Canaan, right? Recognize when it's time to move and follow the new purpose God is calling us into and moving forward. When the Lord is telling us to move, we don't stay. We move. When we stay stagnant. When we stay, it's not good. Trusting God's protection. God warns Laban not to harm Jacob. God even says, Laban, don't touch Jacob. Don't mess with that dude, or I'm gonna mess with you. He doesn't actually say that I'm at him. I'm just being I'm being ridiculous. And it says, be wise in making decisions such as Jacob. Jacob already told Laban he was trying to leave. And Laban already made a huge fuss about him wanting to stay, even saying he's going to increase the wages, trying to persuade him to stay so he can continue to take advantage of the blessing that Jacob has brought. Continue to hold him almost as a slave, actually, because Jacob has been serving. So be wise in making decisions such as Jacob, leaving secretly to avoid due to the conflict that had already happened when he first said he was leaving. Okay? Stand firm when confronted. Laban ends up finding Jacob, and what does Jacob do? He boldly defends his actions. You need to boldly say, hey, I recognize you're doing this in a respectful, Christ-like way because Christ spoke the truth, right? He didn't sugarcoat it. I mean, he didn't speak in little fluffiness and like trying to be like, well, I just thought it's time to leave. Like, no, you need to recognize it. You need to recognize, like, hey, like, I just noticed that I think that this is happening and this is happening. I just felt this way, so I felt like it was just necessary for me to do this. You know what I mean? And I really don't want you to feel as if there's bad intent with it. I'm really sorry if this has hurt you in any way, but if there's any way I can just help you in this way or help you this way to realize that this is why I'm doing this, then just let me know. But in reality, it's just I gotta start moving on to go on to the next blessing or the next individual, and even invite them to fellowship. Okay, so and then that says make peace if possible. Jacob and Laban made a covenant and parted ways. All right, follow through and reach the destination with faith, not by sight. Because think about it, Jacob had abundance and he had literally established himself with a ton of kids with Leah and Rebecca in this land where Laban had resided, right? So he's already established, but the Lord says it's time to go back. Most individuals will say, no, I'm already established, so I'm just going to stay here. But when the Lord calls you to go, it's time to move. It's time to get up. It's time to get your feet, get your shoes, and get walking. So again, faith not by sight. Jacob had faith, but his sight probably was probably wanting to say, but look of all the things we have. Look at all the multitudes. Look, Laban wants to give us more wages. Hey, look, I already have establishment here, and I've already have abundance here. I've already established myself in this career. I've already established myself in this household. I've already established myself in this and this and this. So it's by my sight where I come to the conclusion that I'll just stay here and not listen to what the Lord is calling me into now. And instead of walking by faith, I'll walk by my sight. Okay? So Jacob returns to the land of Canaan as God commands. Don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of, but do it in a peaceful way. Recognize that you are being taken advantage of in a peaceful way. Don't go all crazy and start bashing this individual. No, you need to go in peace because it says in the Bible to be peacemakers. Don't confuse this with disregarding fellowship or disregarding blessing others. I want you to understand that fellowship matters, that being in servitude towards others matter, and blessing others matters as well. Okay? Don't confuse us with like, okay, now we're saying don't bless others. No, I'm saying have a discernment when an individual is starting to take advantage of you. When an individual is starting to idolize the blessing rather than worshiping the God who has given the blessing. Okay?